Is your cat really getting all of the mental stimulation that they need? If they go outside, are they staying safe? And if you're keeping them indoors, there's actually huge benefits to harness training them so that they can explore safely without any risk. And so today I'm talking all about the benefits of using a harness for your cat, whether they're an indoor or an outdoor cat, as well as how to choose a properly fitting harness, and just as importantly, how to make sure that they're staying safe while you're actually using that harness. Hi, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex from ourpetshealth.com, where my aim is to help you optimize your pet's health so that they can live the full and happy life that they deserve. And today is another episode with Laylee and Kevin from Superkit. Now, it's not sponsored, but I do believe in their products, and you can get a 10% discount over at superkit.co using the code OPH10, and those links are down in the description. But for now, let's jump into our interview.
We use our harness all the time, and we've discovered the joys of, being able to take our cats on holiday with us and making veterinary visits less stressful. And it's been really fun to discover that with them.
And so why should people who are kind of happy, letting their cat out, why should they maybe think about adding a collar to their regime or switching a harness, or, or switching completely?
I mean, I think there's the sort of early exposure. So I think it's really useful to, if you have a kitten and you're thinking about letting them outside for the first time, to use a harness as a transitional device so that you can teach them appropriate boundaries, if there's areas of danger around where you live, and kind of just ease them in before just sort of casting them out. So
I think almost as much as it's for your nerves,
yeah.
It's for the owner. I mean, this is a two-way process. The kitten going out, the kitten's bowled over, has no nerves and is quite excited and doesn't really need that much reining in. You need to rein them in for your sake, because you're so scared of letting them out for the first time. But I think that is important,
If you have an indoor cat, obviously it becomes much more valuable in that it's an amazing form of enrichment. It's great exercise. It can help, maintain a healthy weight and, good muscle form. But even if you don't, we've discovered loads of benefits, with our outdoor cats. So, things like being able to take them in the car or
pop round to relatives' house, like popping around to somebody's house and take the cat with you. And have them in the garden on the lead, and you can all sit around and you think, well, and it's a nice thing, they want to see the cat as much as as you want to take them as well, and your cat enjoys it. So it doesn't always have to be a big deal. It can just be something as small and simple as that. And when you open up those little things that you didn't realize before, like, oh yeah, we're going for a barbecue, let's take Lola, and they can come, and it enriches everybody's life, so why not?
That enrichment's really important, I think. But I think a lot of indoor cats, especially, like you say, they're kept indoors for safety, for health reasons, and maybe legislation, or you live in a 4-story apartment or whatever, and you can't let them out. But that enrichment is so key, because they can live such boring lives. If you're at work, you don't change the toys, they don't have any stimulation, and it can really, I guess, revolutionize their life really, and make them so much happier. I guess it's not for every cat, probably, like the real, scaredy cats. Lola sounds like she's pretty bold and, forthcoming. So like copes really well with it, but maybe not for every cat. But when it comes to choosing a harness then, because there's, I guess, slightly different considerations. We don't want it just popping off if they get stressed and hung up. What should people think about when it comes to fitting a harness and then actually getting their cat used to not just the harness, but being on the lead and being outside? Because again, I guess you don't really want to push them towards the danger too quickly and then freak out and go off it for life.
It's total baby steps. I think it's really important, even talking about taking Lola on to a barbecue. That's the culmination of maybe 3 years training. It's not a big adventure, but it is what you can do when your cat is very comfortable in their harness. But it's important to start very gradually. So training wise, we advise people to basically there's sort of very detailed and good guides online that are worth researching, but essentially break the entire process down into the smallest steps you can imagine, and then work through them step by step with your cat. And one thing that can really help is learning to read your cat's body language, so that you can tell when they're happy and when they're not. and then you can make sure you're kind of always working within their comfort zone, and it's, you know, day to day, there's no big the changes in their life, and you're only, you know, going through a process over the scale of, you know, weeks or months with them. So I think that's really important. And then fit is really essential as well, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, you just getting it all right. But just more on what you were saying before is, I think training is one of the big things is that people think cats can't be trained. Everything, you train a dog, a cat is wild. Yeah. And that isn't actually right. Cats are quite happy to go and fetch and be trained in exactly the same way. And having that kind of training regimen that you would have with a dog is kind of important when you start going out for a walk with a harness, because I think a lot of people assume that when you get a dog, you put a lead on it and it goes for a walk at heel. And anybody who's have a dog knows that isn't just a given. They're not born that way. You have to train them, you know, and the better you train a dog, the better it'll walk with you, and you know, the better you get out together. And it's the same with a cat as well. So not just always not going straight for the harness and going for a walk, but like he says, building up very slowly and doing training, you know, and rewarding, you know, and setting boundaries. And there's very small things that you do every day with them, you know, it just builds and grows, you know, and then it's a much more successful venture for both of you, you know, and happier. So I think that's it. And fit wise, I mean, it's similar to a collar in a way. You don't want anything that's rubbing against them particularly. You want it to be as snug as possible and made from a material that's as flexible as they are. Because the cat's going to be doing all sorts of, you know, leaps and jumps and, you know, getting through things. And we know that cats can bend themselves double. And the harness has to move with them in the same way. If it doesn't, then they're not going to tolerate it. So if they can move freely, they're generally happy, aren't they?
Yeah. And one of the things we found that was very important in terms of where it's very important the harness fits them everywhere, but especially behind their elbows, because essentially the way a cat escapes from harnesses is that, you know, elbows in, reverse technique. So, you know, our design obviously tackles that, but you know, it's important when you're looking in a harness's design, does it fit, you know, closely behind their elbows, so that they can't just sort of wriggle out of it.
It's amazing how they can contort themselves, and cats can bend in ways that you wouldn't believe if they really want to.
Yeah, they still amaze me. The things they do. How can you be so? How can you be so long and so short in the same creature? You know, where does
like
all that mass go? You know, just shrink.
No, I often say cats are put on this world to test us, certainly when it comes to treating them at the vets and giving pills and things. But with anything we do, they I get, like, from what you're saying, it just strikes me that we really just need a kind of a mindset shift with you know, that with cats, like you say, the cat's wild, go out, do their own thing, or just don't accept anything. But we just shift our mindset, you know, take it slow steps at a time. And I mean, they're pretty intelligent creatures, so you know, they'll get there, won't they?
Totally. I think, you know, your cat will tell you what it needs. You know, it will tell you if it's bored, it will tell you if it doesn't like being in a carrier at the vets, it will tell you if it's had enough of being out on a harness. So I think, you know, learn to read your cat, which obviously all owners do. I mean, it's part of the training our cats put us through, and then do as you're told.
Exactly. And they aren't the same as dogs in that, you know, they are more willful in a way, and they will want to do their own thing. And it's finding that line between listening to what they want and then also setting boundaries and training. But I think the idea that, again, it's a mindset thing. We usually refer to dog walking, you know, when we think about taking an animal out on a leash. And if you think you're going to go down the shop and go and get your paper with your cat and then come back in 20 minutes, that's not going to happen. It's not a linear A to B process. They work in squares and they work in circles, and they have boundaries, and they want to go around them again and again and again. And what's fascinating when you take your cat out for a walk is you start to learn how they work. You see the world from the cat's perspective, so you understand that their world is kind of three-dimensional. It goes up and as well as it goes left and right, and they want to investigate a complete area and then move on.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of a wanting to get to the end of the field like a dog, and then to the next one. It's a different mindset. So you then also have to change the way that you consider what a walk is. A walk is an exploration of an area as opposed to going
exercise
to a run. Exactly.
So perfect. And then just being proactive, like you mentioned, cats don't like carriers to go to the vets, and they don't, but that's often because we as cat owners, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone, we don't put the time in to get our cat used to the carrier in those small baby steps that you spoke about, getting them used to the car, because they only ever go in the carrier and then go in the car when they're going to the vets or the boarding cattery. So they're already incredibly wound up by the time they get there with that experience, and then they have some big ugly stranger go and poke and prod them and do horrible things, and then they go back home. And so it's if we take the time, just like getting them used to that harness in really small baby steps, then the vets might not become a place where they enjoy going, but it becomes an awful lot less scary, or they're not as wound up. And even you can take them on holiday in the carrier. You've got them used to it. You've got them used to the car. Is there any kind of other questions that you frequently get from your customers that we kind of haven't touched on?
There is actually one thing about escape proofing and harnesses. So we find that the leash position is often, thank you, Lola, I can't even see Alex. We often find that leashes aren't kind of factored into a discussion about harnesses very much, but leash position is really important to making sure that any harness is escape proof. So the scenario is you're out exploring with your cat, they get startled and they try and bolt, which is sort of your cat's natural reaction. And the kind of question is, well, what do you do in that scenario? And most people's natural reaction, it certainly would be mine, is to kind of try and rein your cat in.
Try to reel it in.
Try to pull them back.
Closer to you.
Additionally, people often drop to the ground because they're hoping that they're going to reel their cat in and then be able to scoop them up into their arms. So they're putting tension on the leash and dropping it very low to the ground. And unfortunately, that creates the perfect environment for the cat to spin 180, so their head is facing you, and then do the backing out of the harness that we talked about. So we put quite a lot of effort into training people about good leash position, which is essentially making sure that it's above your cat, so not kind of parallel to the ground.
Okay.
And if the cat is at all kind of spooked or is trying to get away in any sense, you want to close the ground between you and your cat so the leash stays slack. Because if a cat has no tension on the harness on the leash to pull against, they can't get out of their harness. So as long as you make sure the leash is above them and isn't under tension, you can be completely assured that they can't get out.
It's kind
but it's a very counterintuitive maneuver, especially when you're concerned, to not try and scoop your cat up, not try and pull them in, but just kind of, keep up with them.
And it takes practice, because until that happens, you're never going to practice that maneuver until your cat does get scared and wants to run, and you go, God, what do you do now? And you kind of have to walk towards it and keep the leash at the top. But it's an interesting point that you say that a cat can't get out of a harness unless there's a leash to pull against. It's the leash that does it, and you assist them. If anything, you're helping them to get out of that harness, so you have to not help them. I think teaching humans how to take a cat for a walk is 50% of the training. And that's us. I say that from experience.
Absolutely.
We've been through that.
We've learnt as much as Lola has learnt, and I think that's part of it. I think if we put in as much time as people put into training dogs, we'd do a lot better. But I think there just isn't quite the same approach to it,
Now, it's still important to use a collar even if you have an indoor cat who goes out on a harness. And if you want to learn more about choosing the best collar for your cat, make sure you check out the video linked on screen now. And until next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is Our Pets Health, because they're family.